The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining the webinar. We will wait for another minute for additional participants to join in. So just be a bit patient. Okay, so I think we can start. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining the webinar on efficiency as a service. This webinar is organized in the context of the Efficiency as a Service project, which is a project that is organized, that is financed, by the European Union Horizon 2020 program. And the project aim at accelerating the market adoption of energy efficient technologies within enterprises. And the project is taking place in Belgium, in the Netherlands, and in Spain. And here on the side, you can see the different implementing partners of the project within these countries. So accelerate the market adoption of energy efficient technology through the as a service business model. So my name is Mira Taya. I'm a circular economy expert at Agoria, the Belgian Federation of Technology Companies, and I will be moderating today's webinar. And I'm joined by Dimitris Karamitsos, who is Senior Energy Efficiency Business Developer at BEIS, the Basel Agency for Sustainable Energy. And BEIS is the overall project coordinator of the Efficiency as a Service project. So today's webinar serves as an introduction to the Efficiency as a Service business model. So the aim for us today is really to raise the awareness about efficiency as a service as a solution to accelerate the deployment of energy efficient equipment within enterprises, and also to raise the awareness about efficiency as a service, as an alternative, as a sustainable alternative to traditional sales business model. So I will be providing you with an introduction to efficiency as a service, and I'm joined also by speakers from 3 technology companies who have engaged in servitization and who will be sharing with you how efficiency as a service translate within their offering, what is the benefit of going for an as a service offering, and also what are the challenges faced. So perhaps I will let briefly each speaker introduce themselves. Perhaps Stefan, can you very shortly introduce yourself to the 2 participants?
Surely I can. Welcome everyone. So my name is Stefan Segers. I'm working in Daikin now for 16 years. I'm taking the role as a global key accounts manager of Daikin Europe, but we definitely also take care about customers who are active on the global level. And today, indeed, we will share a bit our insights on our vision on efficiency as a service, but also definitely we're looking forward to hear from you as well on your inputs as well on this matter. So talk to you later.
Thank you, Stefan. Tom?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tom de Fratier. I work for Signify. For those of you who don't know Signify, we were formerly known as Philips Lighting, so the largest lighting manufacturer in the world. And I will talk to you about lighting as a service.
Thank you, Tom. Ilmir?
Yep. Hello, everyone. My name is Ilmir Gareev, and I work in Atlas Copco. And I work in marketing as a product manager aftermarket. And I have more than 10 years experience working in the compressed air industry, mainly, of course, in Atlas Copco. Looking forward talking with you and sharing our way toward with energy as a service solutions.
Thank you, Ilmir. I'm looking forward to listening to all of you speaking. So some webinar practicalities before We continue. Sorry, I'm seeing that. Oops, it's not changing slides. Okay. Sorry, I think, okay. So yes, this webinar is being recorded, so you will receive a link of the webinar after the meeting. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so not after each presentation, but after all presentations. So you have a chat box in which you can write down your questions. Sorry, so please, if you have any questions, do type them during the presentation and we will tag them. Sorry. At the end of the webinar, and should we not have the time to raise all the questions, we can also of course do a follow-up after the webinar. So I will start with a brief introduction about efficiency as a service before giving the floor to the other speakers. So to give you a bit of a context behind why the European Union decided to finance such a project, well, you're all very familiar with the ambitious objective that the European Union has set in order for the continent to reach the climate neutrality by 2050. And associated to that, there are a number of measures that are being developed across the continent to reach this goal, amongst with carbon capture, renewable energies, etc. But these measures will not be sufficient in order to reach the climate neutrality goal, and energy efficiency measures are essential and absolutely crucial in order to enable Europe to be climate neutral by 2050. And according to the European Commission, the larger investment gap have been identified within the for energy efficiency measure within the building stock, within small and medium-sized enterprises, and within the industry. So there's enormous amount of investments that will need to take place in order to boost energy efficiency across industry, but also across building stocks. And on a yearly basis, there are hundreds of billions of investment that will need to take place in order to reach that target. Now, there are a number of barriers with regards to investment in energy efficiency equipment, and one of the first barriers is the higher upfront cost of these technologies. So high-end and energy efficient technology are more expensive, and so this could be a barrier for companies to invest in energy efficient equipment. It's also, there is associated to that sometimes uncertainty with regards to the returns, especially if we're talking about innovative equipment. It's not always certain after how many years there will be a return on investments, and now there are quite some requirements that the return of investment has to be after a short period. A higher risk perception as well with regards to certain technologies, and also competing priorities, whereby businesses often want to focus their investments, being human resources or financial investments, within their core business. So, and energy efficiency is not necessarily part of a company's core business or main objective, and so the focus or the investment will go more into the core business associated equipment. And also one other barrier could be also simply the limited financing options in order to invest in these highly efficient technologies. And so securitization is a solution that enables to remove these barriers by enabling and by shifting the energy efficiency cost from a more expensive and high capital expenditure to a transparent, low risk operating expenditure. And by doing this, there's a lot of barriers with regards to investing in energy efficiency that are removed. So if we want to look a bit into practice about energy efficiency, what is it about? So in energy efficiency, the ownership of the equipment remains within the responsibility of the service provider. And so what the service provider does, the service provider will design the installation, the equipment, the system will also be responsible for the installation, for the operation and maintenance, for the performance of the equipment, as well as for the end of life of the equipment. And on the customer side, it's simply a single monthly payment that could be either a pay-per-use model, so a variable fee that incorporates and includes also the energy cost, but it can also be a fixed monthly payment. So within the efficiency as a service project, we have developed a standardized contract that is technology agnostic, and within this contract, we've developed the formula of a pay-per-use model, including the energy cost, to provide an additional incentive for the provider to run the equipment in the most efficient way. But obviously, there are different types of models of efficiency as a service models that can be applied. What is important to note also, so we go from ownership to access when from the point of view of the customer. And what is important to note is that when we go to efficiency as a service or as a service business model in general, there is a move from a transaction to a partnership. So it's no longer a one-off transaction, but it's really a partnership between the supplier and the customer, whereby the supplier aims really at creating value for the customer. And within as a service agreement, there are also a number of service level requirements, and the supplier really is engaging in providing a certain quality performance to the customer. So efficiency as a service also really is a sustainable business model and creates a kind of a win-win situation and a win-win-win situation between the provider, the customer, and also society and the environment as a whole. So if we look at the benefits from a supplier perspective, what efficiency as a service does, it enables the supplier to become competitive compared to faced with providers of technology which are cheaper but much less efficient. So this business model really enables the supplier to be competitive with cheaper equipment. And also it enables the supplier to have access to new markets and tap into markets that would otherwise not have maybe the means to invest in these highly efficient technologies. Also, efficiency as a service creates a predictable and continuous source of revenue. It's no longer a one-off transaction, but really a continuous transaction. And finally, efficiency as a service also enables focuses really on the customer. So really here the aim is to create value for the customer. And so a happy customer is a customer that is retained as well. So from the customer perspective, what are the benefits? First, as we mentioned, it's the idea of being able to access the most efficient equipment without having to put any upfront investments. And what we've tried to do also within the contract that we've developed is to open the way for the investments to be off the balance sheet of the customer, so so the balance sheet can be improved. And also important as well, aside from the financial benefits, I would say, or the financial advantages, is the outsourcing of the operational and maintenance of the equipment, and also the improved process equipment and uptime. Because here the business model is in a way that it is the incentive, the provider is really incentivized to operate the equipment in the most efficient way. In terms of the environment, here the as a service business model is really at the central of the circular economy. So because the supplier retains the ownership of the equipment, or remains responsible for the equipment throughout the life cycle, the provider is really incentivized to build really high quality, robust equipment, long lasting equipment, to provide also state of the art maintenance, and to ensure that the equipments are reusable and repairable. And from a technology point of view also, some of the contracts can be quite long-term contracts. And so the technology provider is also incentivized to design, technology that is really modular and that is upgradable in order to enable also the customer to benefit from more recent technologies as the year pass during the contract. And so from an environmental perspective, the circular economy really enables the improvement with regards to resource use and also waste reduction. But of course, when we talk about highly efficient technologies, we're also looking into climate mitigation measures. So before I conclude with this introduction, there's really a boom of efficiency as a service solution that has been triggered by development within the digital industry. So the industry 4.0 really enabled the transformation in the way operation function. And so there is a lot of different equipment for which you have efficiency as a service or as a service offers. And it goes from mining equipment, from lifting equipment, from precision machines, renewable equipment. You even have now facade as a service, you have cooling, lighting. So it's really, it's a business model that is expanding a lot. However, if we look at the maturity curve, most of the business model or most of the equipment for which an as a service offering is made are still in the emerging phase. And there are a few technologies that are mature. We are all familiar with the printing industry and also the leasing within the transport industry. So these are quite mature. And there are a number of technologies in which are emerging as a service. And here our aim is really to accelerate this transition and to enable the scaling up of as a service offering to really promote and ensure that efficient equipment are deployed to the maximum of their potential. So yes, thank you very much. I was a bit quick, but I would like to leave the floor to the speakers from the three technology companies. So now I will give the floor to Stéphane. If you have any questions, please do type them in a chat box, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. So Stéphane, I will now give the floor to you.
Yep. Show my screen. I can do a full screen. I think everyone can see my screen now.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to also hide this one here as well. Yes, so welcome everyone. So as I explained before, my name is Stéphane Segers, Global Key Account Section Manager at Daikin Europe. And I'm very happy to be here as well and to also get your input. And today we will, of course, share a bit more about Daikin itself, who we are, what we do. Mainly some trends that we saw in the industrial sector and how we would like to answer to those trends and how efficiency as a service can fit perfectly to reach your sustainability goals. And then finally, the status of efficiency as a service and Daikin. But first of all, who are Daikin? For the ones who don't know, we are the leader in HVAC and R solutions, number one around the world. So if you look at our turnover, more than 90% what we do are HVAC and R solutions. So from products to services, and even in the 6.6% refrigerants, also here actually many of the refrigerants and chemicals are also used for HVAC. So basically what we say is that HVAC is what we do and what we are good at. We don't make cars, phones, TVs. This is exactly our specialty, and we are a Japanese company with $22 billion yearly turnover. I can say a lot about Daikin, but just to make it very simple in one slide, We can handle any application from a small house to factories to the biggest tower, and we can support you in all your HVAC and R projects from design till after sales as well, for comfort cooling, process cooling, you name it. We have a complete range. When we send the slides afterwards, there's some more information about Daikin, but I will not go into too much detail now. Just this one simple message: we can handle all your HVAC and R projects. Now, let's continue because we really want to talk mainly about efficiency as a service and our vision. And at Daikin, we are a Japanese company. So whenever we make a strategy or a vision, it always starts with Gemba. So this is a Japanese word, so I'm going to learn you some Japanese today. And Gemba means the action of going to see the actual process, understand the business of our customers, ask questions, and learn. So really go into the field. And mainly, as many of you are from the industrial markets, the result of our Gemba activity towards you as a customer are the following. We got a lot of inputs that's from your side that you only want either low GWP solutions, so global warming potential solutions. We want to be carbon neutral by a certain time frame. You want us to help on recycling refrigerants. We even get questions, what are Daikin doing linked to UN's SDG goals, sustainability development goals, total cost of ownership. So all of these questions are coming forward. And so what is quite clear to us is that sustainability is at the center of the most important needs of our industrial customers. So how do we respond to that? We're also manufacturers, also industrial player. We have a vision as well, 2050, to provide safe, healthy air environment while striving to reduce our CO2 emissions to zero. Of course, with our products, through solutions and the power of air. To go more in detail, of course, through products is quite simple and straightforward. Of course, we want to be an innovator and to continue to produce high energy efficient products, also including the adaptation of some refrigerants with lower global warming potential. Like Daikin was the first with R32 solutions, which are also increasing the efficiency of the products while also reducing GWP and also needing less refrigerant charge. But also we are having a lot of HFO solutions too. So definitely there, as we want to continue on that one. Through the power of air, so more important these days is also indoor air quality and make sure that we have a high productivity if it's now a store or a factory or a warehouse, and that we have the right temperature settings throughout the year. But where really energy as a service or efficiency as a service comes in is through the solutions. As Daikin, we invested a lot recently, and we will continue to invest much more into providing energy services throughout the complete value chain. So definitely it's part of our vision and target to more and more develop as a service business models for comfort, but also for process cooling. If you go more in detail about this whole value chain, of course, energy efficiency as a service, we have some benefits that are as well for standard sales as for efficiency as a service, which are the first three parts I'll explain later. But with efficiency as a service or air as a service, there are also going to be some guaranteed benefits, which might be optional in traditional sales, but definitely will be a guaranteed benefit for you once we move forward in this direction. So of course, for everyone, if it's now standard sales or efficiency as a service, you will have with Daikin a manufacturer who can provide you, of course, the high efficient solutions with low CO2 emissions, like I already mentioned, R32 HFO. We also take good care not just about our product, but also the products of our suppliers. And maybe you don't know, but Daikin has, as one of the few or the only even HVAC manufacturer, the BS 6001 certificates for responsible sourcing, coming from the organization of BRE, who also invented BREEAM, where it also is clear that we are having high and strict standards to our suppliers to reach those high efficient products. And also, when you choose Daikin, you choose a manufacturer who even won the SDG Pioneer Award from United Nations in Europe, where also we look forward to continue to support you with these efficient products with a very high level and high quality manufacturing process. But this is, of course, traditional standard for everyone. What is more important, when you continue with Daikin the journey of efficiency as a service or air as a service, the pre-sales activity. With efficiency as a service, Daikin will also take care about the optimal system selection. It makes no sense of giving you a high efficient product if it's oversized or even undersized, because it has a huge impact on the efficiency of your system. So this is always the responsibility of Daikin when you enter air as a service or efficiency as a service model. To be sure, we can even do energy audits. And even on top, we also, of course, will take care about the installation, which also, in case of HVAC, has a big important impact on the efficiency. Wrong installation can also impact your efficiency of your system. As Daikin, we have the most advanced tools to support you during the usage phase to also make sure that you have the highest efficiency. Especially if you look at process cooling, we have Daikin on site for our chillers with remote reporting, servicing. Even we can do leakage detection. Remote software updates to always make sure we have the most advanced cloud solution for your efficiency. And also you have dashboards with energy monitoring. And this is definitely a must, or even let's say a mandatory benefit for you when you take Daikin and the efficiency as a service contract. And then finally, when you look at Daikin on site, it's mainly linked to a maintenance program by Daikin. And also here we have the most advanced tools, the most advanced knowledge to help you with maintaining your system. Even at the end of life, we have programs which we call Loop by Daikin to also make sure at the end of life that we can have a circular economy of refrigerants, but even we are exploring circular economy of even the total units and recycle the total units. So these, let's say, last three phases and these benefits are definitely guaranteed when you go with Daikin and efficiency as a service. Of course, you can always ask for this benefits as well with traditional sales too. Just to give some examples, Daikin has already developed a new product as a service service called Air as a Service. That's the official name, together with Mitsui and Co, which is a financial partner. It's indeed a monthly subscription-based air conditioning service that eliminates the need to purchase air conditioners, so indeed no ownership of equipment. And already explained by Mira, what it is indeed we are offering the highly efficient air conditioner selection and installation, plus optimal operation, energy management and maintenance as a one-stop service via monthly fees. And as explained also by Mira, indeed, this gives lots of benefits for you. Like indeed, you can focus on your core business. You have the most energy efficient system, no upfront investments. And I think by now it's quite clear what those benefits are. And also more of that is also explained in our sustainability reports, which you can also find online. One reference we have that I want to show you is that doing this Air as a Service package, it has already established savings of 36.8% over 2 years at a hospital. So there, indeed, it's again a proof that going in this direction, it really makes sure that it gives a peace of mind to customers with all these benefits, but mainly as well a proven fact that energy efficiency is there with Daikin Air as a Service. Now, the status in general, to be honest, up till now, the voice from the market has been limited, but we see a rapidly increasing trend, also explained by Mira, in many verticals and many segments. So as a company, we are taking actions to scale up. So we have started models in Japan, China, Latin America, and also have developed models in Europe, because it is truly part of our global vision and Daikin to develop PaaS models such as Air as a Service and Efficiency as a Service. We started therefore trials in Italy, mainly with industrial players, to learn and improve, which are those contracts. These are 5-year contracts. In this case, product as a service, so not based on kilowatt hour, but Daikin offers, in this case, the design, installation, use of product, maintenance, remote monitoring at one monthly fee, but indeed not based on consumption yet. So these type of products that we are now focusing on is mainly for process cooling. Why is that? It's easier to remove, meaning that it's not as part of the building as a commercial HVAC products for comfort cooling, for example, a shop where almost the AC is part of the building and the ceiling. And also for these type of chillers, there's also can be a second-hand market, as there's already like a rental, let's say, business model linked to those type of products. So definitely for us, it's a primary focus. I mentioned beginning of my presentation, we start mainly with Gemba, but we also feel even more Gemba is needed to understand the drivers, but also current and future needs of the industrial players linked to develop these as a service business models. So later today, please raise your voice in the upcoming poll, because we're happy to hear your input on that. Today, for sure, we can help our partners, like hopefully also some of yourselves in the future, to achieve your sustainability goals and simultaneously reduce the cost of operations. In the future, even for one fee. So my final message is, before I give the word to Tom, is please engage with us in developing efficiency as a service together, or simply help you to reach your sustainability goals today. Thank you for your attention. And I think later have a Q&A, but for now, I will give the word to Tom.
Yes, thank you very much, Stefan. So if any of you have questions to raise to Stefan, please just don't hesitate to include them in the chat box. Yes, Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mira. I will talk to you about, oh, sorry, I am not seeing, is everybody seeing my screen? Because I'm not seeing my own screen for the moment.
Yes, yes, we are.
Here I am. I was going a little bit too quickly. Sorry for the hiccup. So I will talk to you a little bit about lighting as a service. But I'm also kind of using my sales pitch for it, because I think a big benefit of as a service model, as Mira already explained at the beginning, it is also about building a long-term relationship with your customer. It is also about broadening that relationship really to a partnership. And part of it is, of course, to be better acquainted with your customer and to be more of a strategic partner. And one of the benefits of as a service, at least for lighting, is that we are even able to generate free cash flow. And that is, of course, a reason to talk to more financial people within a company, whereas typically lighting would be quite an operational purchase. Again, also to repeat the context of why this is very interesting, and why I hope also to inspire you to do it rather today than tomorrow, is the context of our world changing. I mean, energy efficiency because of carbon emissions is high on the agenda in the broad society. It is high on the agenda with politics, but it's also high on the agenda with corporations. And I'm quite proud to say that Signify has already achieved carbon neutrality last year. And we did that, of course, by looking at our supply chain, by looking at how we manufacture, but also at looking how we use our buildings, both our office buildings and our manufacturing plants. And this is, of course, also where our own technology, lighting, comes in, as lighting is part of energy consumption in any building. Now, what is quite unique about lighting industry is that we had a technology shift about 10 years ago when we moved from what we call conventional lighting for an office or an industrial plant that would be typically TL lighting to more energy efficient LED lighting. And that energy efficiency is quite high. I mean, the number I put here is a very conservative number, meaning that for any application, the shift to LED is at least 50%, and that is calculating that you would have a latest generation of conventional lighting and a very modest LED lighting. So in reality, the number is a lot higher. But of course, new builds are only a really small portion of the buildings we have in the world, and we need to accelerate the energy efficiency of our real estate if we really want to achieve that carbon neutrality as a continent. And therefore, it's also very interesting to look at how can we speed up the energy efficiency of our existing buildings and everything around it. And that's why the momentum not only is now to speed up your LED lighting, but it's also low-hanging fruit, because it is, as we say, as easy as changing a light bulb. Changing your lighting is not difficult infrastructural work. It's actually a lot easier than a lot of other things to do, so you can do it quite fast. That's only by looking at LED. What we talk about is not just lighting, it's always lighting with a little bit of a system around it, and a little bit of a system and a connectivity are at least occupancy sensors, because the light only needs to burn when there is somebody there, and otherwise it can dim down. So in reality, we realize efficiency gains of at least 60%, but often 70 and sometimes 80 or 90% of less energy consumption than the current state. So that's great. Of course, that's something nobody could refuse, but there's of course also the reality. The reality of things is that somebody has to do it, and that somebody, changing your lighting is not the highest on your agenda when you're running a manufacturing plant. You need to organize yourself to do it. It's also something that you would need to justify to your management on how to put forward that investment. And I'm kind of explaining my case around a manufacturing site, and of course there's also a lot of risk involved there, because you want your operations to continue, and you don't want any surprises, and you don't want any risk. And that's actually the main reason that we see that many industrial companies are kind of late in updating their lighting equipment. Our estimates are that at least 60% of manufacturing sites are still on conventional lighting. So here is the solution. The solution is the as a service model, where we don't offer you lamps, but we actually offer you what the lamps are for. So we say don't buy lamps, but buy lighting as a service. When you think about it differently, it's also a different way of evaluating what you get, but also in a contract. When you do buy lighting, you can do that based on technical specs of a product, but that doesn't mean that what is on the box that you will actually get for a longer period of time. So if you buy lighting because of energy saving, there is, what does the technical specs say on how more energy efficient it is, but there's also the reality of how that is working. The same with uptime. You don't want the lights to go out, but at the same time, how sure are you about the quality that you're buying? And we also measure that on lighting output, because it's not about what is coming out of the lamp on the ceiling. Lighting is therefore the activity that is happening underneath. So we measure the lighting outputs on the floor or on a working environment, and we do that during the whole period of the contract time, that we make sure that we meet those KPIs, and this is what we as a company are accountable for. And then there is also the interesting part of the financial benefit, and I'm going to share that in an example. The example is using very round numbers to make it easy to explain, but at the same time, this is based on a realistic scenario of an average industrial plant. So they're not just made up; they're a little bit rounded, but you know, they are quite realistic. So if you look at an average plant, then the total cost of energy plus the maintenance costs can be around 100K per year. And that would then be conventional lighting. If that company wants to invest in new up-to-date lighting, more energy efficient LED lighting, that would require a 200K capex investment, which would be a return on investment of, let's say, 20-25%. Now, if we do it into a lighting as a service contract, then of course you don't need to invest upfront. We shift from a capex model to an opex model, and you immediately get this energy cost saving of at least 60%. And what is interesting, and especially for manufacturing sites where what we call in lighting burning hours are quite high. I mean, if you could compare the activity in an industrial plant is of course much more hours, also night shifts sometimes, weekends would be very different than, for example, a school which is closed in Wednesday afternoon or stops at 4 before it gets dark. So we really are able also there to offer customers a lighting as a service fee, which if you added up the energy cost and the lighting as a service fee, which includes, of course, the maintenance, that we are actually able to provide you free cash flow from day one. A typical lighting as a service contract is 10 years. Of course, we can change that, but let's say that's really the standard is a 10-year contract. So for 10 years, you immediately have this benefit. But then, of course, after 10 years, the quality of the system is usually still there. Of course, it depends on how heavy it has been used and how much the light has been burning. But in reality, usually after 10 years, there's still about 5 years left to continue. So we always offer the possibility to extend the contract with another 5 years, but that would be a much lower contract because we would not need to include the, let's say, the hardware installation anymore. It would be only based on the maintenance costs. So the savings after year 10 are much higher. If I put it in a different way to compare, so really compare a traditional capex model with a light as a service model, you will see you get the positive cash flow from day one, but that also means that you actually keep your capex, and that's what, of course, manufacturing companies really want to do with their money, is to invest that budget into their own manufacturing sites, because usually within production there is also a lot of energy saving to be gained. What is also interesting is that it can help you to improve your balance sheet. We are able, or a lot of customers of ours are able to have this as an off-balance construction, even applying to IFRS 16 rules. And of course, not to forget that you do get the quality of light, and that's of course the main reason to do it. And also referring to what Mira was saying in the introduction, is that most of our customers end up getting a quality of light which was much higher than what they would have bought within the constraints of their capex budget. And last but not least, this is also part of it, you get the performance during the whole duration of the contract. What is typical about LED lighting, if you compare it to conventional lighting, when a conventional light bulb or TL lamp is broken, it literally is broken. So it's either on or it's off, and when it's off, you need to replace it. With LED, you actually don't very rarely see that the LED is really broken, but the quality degrades over time. So if you buy lighting now today and you go for the cheaper solution, you say like, this is just as good because I do get the quality of light, but the cheaper solution will degrade quality much faster. And that can even mean that your lighting is no longer compliant. And within such a contract, of course, you don't have that risk because that's what you pay for. You pay for complying quality of light, and that should be the same in year 1 as it is in year 10. And if it isn't, it's up to us as a supplier to make sure that it still is. So we are responsible for maintenance, preventive maintenance, and replacement should that be necessary. Now, what is driving that? Again, I'm focusing on industrial customers because this type of lighting as a service we offer to customers in different segments. And we see that it's especially taking off with industrial customers, but also with governments. Also for road and street, for example. I mean, many of you in the audience are for Belgium. I think it was on the news even recently that our government is really investing in updating our street lighting. We are currently at around 20% of our street lighting on LED. Our goal is to have 100% by 2030. How is the government doing that? That's also, of course, also via lighting as a service, because that is also helping the government to, to not raise taxes in a way. And the same goes for industrial customers also. And what is also similar between both is that, there's a long-term ownership of at least the surroundings that need to be lit. The difficult segments would be segments like office, where you have much more a owner-tenant kind of short-term partnership. So for, again, focusing on manufacturing, what's really driving new lighting there, we talked about the carbon emission KPIs, but of course, very high on the agenda of industrial sites is always safety as well. And lighting, of course, is very important for safety too. You need to see where you are. You need to prevent slips, trips, and falls, and therefore lighting is very essential. So why do they choose for a lighting as a service contract? As I explained, they keep the CapEx for their investments in the production process, but also OpEx is much faster to implement. It goes through a much faster approval process. And what is also interesting is that we can work from one framework agreement and then scale that over multiple sites and even countries, which is again also a benefit of working with Signify, because we have a very broad portfolio. Most of our competitors have, I would say, a very competitive portfolio when you talk about a certain application, whether it is a manufacturing hall or a warehouse or outdoor lighting or an office. But Signify is able to combine all of that into one contract. And we also have a global presence, but work with local teams. So many of our customers are actually customers who have manufacturing sites across Europe, and we all serve those from one central framework agreement. That's the sales pitch. There's of course also the challenges and the reality, and we have to be transparent about that as well, because for our customers it is quite a journey. And I think the difficulty or the complexity is maybe not so much in the as a service contract. It is about the fact that today you're not used to doing that today you have a very different way of working. So the challenge is more in the change management than it is really into the details of what we will do, because it is a very different buying process when you're buying a service rather than buying a product. It is not so easy to compare apples to apples when you just look at the technical specification. You also need to evaluate the value over the total economical lifetime. You also need to involve a lot more people from the broader team of the customer. It's not just procurement or facility manager who can look at it. You especially need to involve the legal department, because the terms and conditions of an as a service contract just require a lot more attention than a standard contract. But you also need to work with the accounting department to make sure that they work with legal. So this has really been booked as an off-balance contract, for example. But you also need to work, with the team itself. You need to set clear goals and expectations with everybody, also with subcontractors. That's why we also always advise to work with one party. That doesn't mean that it's Signify who is doing everything. On the contrary, It's always a partnership between the customer, the supplier, we, and the actual party doing the installation and or maintenance. And often for manufacturing, this is very strict, because if you are doing more complex manufacturing, you won't allow just anybody onto your site. So it's also about choosing the party who do that. But the advantage is you only have one contract, and you only have one person or one company to contact to fix a problem, and we will take care of it. And so it's up to us to organize things with the subcontractor, rather than you need to do that yourself. Oops, my screen is not moving. There it is. So I hope this is the offer you can't refuse, and that you will all think of not only buying light, but looking into how buying light can help you even to optimize your cash flow.
Thank you, Tom. Very convincing argument, I must say. Now we will give the floor to Ilmir for the final presentation.
Yep. So thank you very much, Miro, for passing me a ball. I think that's a ball. And let me, I think we all are facing this kind of challenge today, because we have to again work from home. And last week I went to Decathlon and I bought this device, which is a basket, because as I have more time working from home, I decided to improve some skills. Let me try. Still room for improvement. And I think when it comes to as a service solutions, basically a lot of companies are are busy today with finding a way and knowing more about this kind of business models, because it's first of all, it's very important, and second, is in trend with the market. And in our private lives, I think you all know that we have a lot of possibilities to buy or to use as a service solutions already today with this kind of bike sharings, and another one is like some apps looking to Netflix or Spotify, for instance. But when it comes to compressed air, and Atlas Copco is the leader of this industry, we first of all think about how new technology can help our customers to be better. And when it comes to the better, we as a supplier of utility equipment, because compressor technique is utility, we think about how to give our customers possibility to focus more on their core business. And okay, of course, as I said, compressor equipment is utility, and it's not a core business. And of course, but still, you as a customer have to overcome some, let's say, obstacles or challenges. And first of all is the investment. Yeah, of course, you have to find some investment to purchase this equipment, and I mean, based on your demands, of course. Second challenge is efficiency, because okay, of course, everybody wants to buy not only the equipment, but also the most efficient equipment. That's another challenge. The third one is sustainability. Again, we want to buy not only the equipment, the most efficient equipment, but also the most sustainable equipment, or to get solution which is the most sustainable. When it comes to sustainability in any compressor technique, I think the most important is to look on the lifetime of equipment, and also to know what will happen after the lifetime of equipment. And another one is, for instance, if we have new technology, more efficient, how can we change existing machines for a new one? Because again, it's still machines which we have to deal with somehow. Another challenge is, let's say, fluctuating production or economy. I hope, or not hope, sorry, but I think that everybody saw it during this pandemic, that indeed some productions was really stopped and some was reduced. And of course, in this case, it's always a challenge to understand and to know how to perform, how to behave in this uncertainty. And last but not least is an operational process. Of course, if you have equipment, you have to operate it. And also, I think all of us want to operate it in the most efficient way. Taking into account these challenges, we also start to think how this as a service model can help our customers to overcome these challenges or obstacles. And let me show you what do we see as benefits or the things which help our customers to overcome it. First of all, in case of investment, okay, we think that it's well known that instead of investing money, you can just pay a small fee periodically and you get your equipment. In case of efficiency, we decided that with this service model, as a service model, we will use only the most efficient equipment. So because we also want to give opportunity and possibility for all our customers to enjoy using the most efficient equipment, because then of course you will reduce your energy bills. In case of sustainability, of course, we as a manufacturer knows better than everybody how to manage asset or equipment during lifetime. And also we know how to or what to do with this equipment after lifetime. And at the beginning, we also were thinking like we have or we want to provide possibility to our customers to up and downgrade equipment if it's needed. When it comes to fluctuating production, okay, it's obvious that with this kind of model, you pay per usage, and that's something which we also wanted to implement with this model. And one more is about operational efficiency, let's say. And I think that when it comes to operational efficiency, the main outcome of the best operational is to have the maximum uptime of equipment and no extra cost. I mean, for instance, kind of breakdown cost or something which is unplanned or unexpected. And taking into account this, we basically built our product or our solution, which is AirPlan. AirPlan is a business model with a pay-per-usage concept where you don't need to invest money and you start to benefit of having the most efficient equipment from the beginning. As a background, we have machines or equipment and all-inclusive service. When I say about all-inclusive service, it's not only, let's say, maintenance or parts, but it's also connectivity. And with the connectivity, as we connect all machines to in-house built cloud system, we have possibility to follow all parameters from equipment, and using AI and also our expert people proactively detect and of course avoid any problems with equipment. And so you get the highest uptime. So, and that's why we even today can guarantee the availability of machines. And of course you don't have any extra cost because it's covered by this solution. That's shortly about the offer or the solution, but let me just highlight two main things probably which are important with AirPlan. I said pay-per-usage. That's, I think, one of the beauty of AirPlan, and how we do it. As I said, also as I mentioned, we have connectivity as a part of the solution. All machines are connected, and we call this solution SmartLink. And thanks to this, as I also mentioned already, we can follow all parameters from equipment and usage as well. That's why we based on this usage, we calculate a fee, which you as a customers pay. And it's really based on usage of your equipment. In our fee, we have small part which is fixed, because we as a supplier also have some fixed cost, like cost of capital, because we invest in building these machines, and also we have fixed overhead cost. But of course, still you pay per usage, and you pay less if machine runs less, you pay a little bit more if machine runs more. And another, I think, big benefit of Airplan is flexibility. Again, and it's not only about Airplan, it's about all these as-a-service solutions, and we believe that as-a-service should be flexible. And what I mean with flexible, first of all, is simple contract. Simple contract indeed is very simple. Short minimum terms, it means that for instance, in our case with Airplan, we have just 15 months minimum period, and after 15 months, you can terminate contract without any penalties. And another one is, as I mentioned already, up and downgrade equipment without any penalties, which means that if in certain time you think that you need more air, for instance, and you need to have bigger machine, we allow to change existing with another one, and you get again the most efficient machines, and so you also increase efficiency of your production. That's about our as-a-service solution, which we have in Atlas Copco, and which we proud of. At the end, we also believe that with the Airplan, you really can focus on your core business, and we with Airplan will handle your air pressure. In case of any questions regarding Airplan or other questions to me and to Atlas Copco, you can contact me. My contact details you see on the screen, but also we will send it, I believe, after this presentation to you. Till now, thank you very much for your attention. I hope it was interesting. And Mira, let me pass you the word.
Yes, thank you, Ilmir. I think I might, yes. Okay, so just checking if you can, yes, I see you can see my screen. So thank you very much to Tom, Ilmir, and Stefan for your presentations. Before we go into the Q&A sessions, and please, if you have any questions, do type them in the question box. We would like to just seek your views on some elements with regards to the efficiency as a service business model. So the first questions that we would like to address is the key driver. So what would be a key driver? So the idea is to select one, a key driver for you to go for an efficiency as a service agreement. So what the key driver would be the financing part. So the fact that you're moving from capex to opex, the improvement of the balance sheet in case you manage to put the agreement off the balance sheet, also the cost savings. Is it about the predictable cost planning? We didn't really actually mention that, but efficiency as a service can also enable you to have more predictable costs because you just have a single fee, and in case there is an equipment breakdown, etc., but this is all taken care of by the supplier, so for you it's still the monthly fee. So in terms of maintenance cost planning, it's more predictable than a regular offer. The full outsourcing of performance, operation and maintenance, and also the associated risk. And so the idea would be that you have an external party that takes care of everything. The flexibility and upgradability of the equipment. So as mentioned, for instance, of Ilmir, that you can, when you go for an as a service offering, you do have the opportunity you do have the opportunity to perhaps upgrade the equipment during your contract, and also one of the driver would be the contribution to sustainability. So I am going to launch the poll. Normally you should see it on the screen. Yes, I see. So you can select one of the options. So please choose one. What would be your key driver? Should you want to go for an as a service solution, what would be your main driver? So is it the financing cost, the predictable cost planning, the outsourcing of performance, but associated to the outsourcing of the performance, it's also the improvement of the equipment performance and uptime. The flexibility, the upgradability, or the contribution to sustainability. So I will leave another 30 seconds for you to be able to vote in the poll. Okay. So I'm going to close the poll and share the results. So I can see that, yes, there's a tie between the financing incentive and also the outsourcing of performance and the improvement of equipment performance. And also the flexibility and upgradability, yes, has also some point. Well, contribution to sustainability goals, it's perhaps not the most answer. So thank you. We're going to go up. So the next questions that we would like to address to you now, it's about the barriers. So which barriers would you see when going for an efficiency as a service offering? Would it be the criticality of your process? So by means that you would consider that your process is quite critical and you would not feel comfortable with sort of handing over the operation and maintenance with regards to a specific process. Is it uncertainty with regards to the total cost of ownership, the comparison between what would be the total cost of ownership of an as a service offering versus the purchase? So another barrier possible would be the concern about possible being locked in with a supplier. So if you look into 10-year contract, you might have some concerns to be sort of locked in with a single supplier for 10 years. So could this be a barrier to go for as a service offering? Or as Tom mentioned, also the fact that it could be a challenge to implement as a service because they have in the decision-making process, there are different people within the organization and it's not something that you're used to implementing as a service contract. So this could be a challenge. So I'm going to launch the poll. Yeah. And so finally, perhaps you don't see any barriers at all. With regards to going as a service, and you have been convinced by our speakers to go for this business model and you're just ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to a few seconds still to vote. Okay, closing the vote. So sharing the results of the poll. So yes, we can see that there is some concerns about the lock-in, lock-in with the supplier, and about also the total cost of ownership. Some concerns also with regards to process criticality. So if we look at the supplier lock-in, it's a concern that can be understandable, especially when you're going for long-term contracts, other contracts such as the case for Atlas Copco, where we see our shorter term and provide some flexibility. On the other hand, what is important to note is that in an efficiency as a service business model, as we've mentioned, there is really the supplier's focus is really on ensuring the best performance with regards to the output produced. And within efficiency as a service contract, you do have also KPIs. You do have requirements that the supplier has to meet. And so, in a sense, in an as a service business model, there is a transfer of risk from the customer to the provider. And so, the provider in as a service business model has already faces some risk because it's the provider that has actually pre-financed the installation. And so because the provider has pre-financed the installation and is also in a way locked in a long-term contract with the customer, and having taken the risk to pre-finance the installation, the incentive for the supplier to really meet the requirements in terms of performance and in terms of KPI that are established in as a service agreement are quite high. And so usually what is the strength of as a service business model is really where actually it's a business model that aligns the advantage, I would say, aligns the needs of both the supplier and the customer. Because if the supplier does not meet anymore the requirements that are set up in the contract, then there are some penalty fees as well. So in terms of concerns with regards to a critical process, normally it's a type of business model that actually enables a better performance of the equipment. So as mentioned also earlier, when we talk about efficiency, when we talk about uptime, it's not only about the equipment itself, but really about the processing, the operation, and maintenance of the equipment. And so with regards to the total cost of ownership, what we can say here is that it's a bit difficult also to have a direct comparison between TCO of purchasing the equipment versus as a service, because there's a large part also of benefits that are not easily calculatable in terms of as a service. As for instance, Tom mentioned, you have one person to go to if there is an issue. It's everything is outsourced, everything is taken care of, which means that not only in terms of performance, the benefits of performance that are higher, and it's sometimes not always also easy to put a number of that. But so but okay, these concerns are quite understandable. If someone would like to raise a question, or we can also maybe give you the floor during the Q&A session. I will quickly move to the other poll just to give a bit of time for the remaining parts. Sorry. Okay. So the next question is whether you would prefer to go for a pay-per-use model with a variable fee, or whether you would prefer to go for a pay-per output, which means that you would go for a fixed fee. So this is a relatively more easy one, and you can perhaps you can maybe not be sure But so in going in and as a service contract, would you prefer a variable fee that is related based on your consumption level, or would you prefer a fixed monthly fee, independent of the usage that you make from the equipment? And we can't say that there's one necessarily better than the other. It actually also depends on specific circumstances and on the type of equipment. So. Okay, so here it's a bit of a tie between the pay-per-use and pay-per-outcome. And so, yes, some of you might not have figured it out yet, but yes, this also, it will depend on the specific type of contracts. And final poll, and then we can go to the Q&A session. In terms of return on investment, so if sustainability is an important objective within your company, does your company allow for longer return on investments for sustainable projects? If you would like to invest in a project on energy efficiency or sustainability, is the return on investment can be longer than for a normal project. Okay, so the results, so that's quite a good news. So a majority would be go for a yes. So that's good to know that for a sustainable project, you're allowed for a longer return on investments. What I will do now is we will address, we have a few questions in the chat box. The first question is addressed to Tom. So I'm going to read the question. If you would like also to raise a question orally, just mention, please specify it, and we can unmute you so you can address also the audience. So for Tom, you mentioned that Signify provides 100% carbon neutral light. Does this mean that Signify takes 100% green electricity contract at your customer site? Is it typically a different contract?
Yeah, thank you, Mira. Well, I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding, or I did not explain correctly. What I mentioned was in my introduction is that Signify as a company has achieved carbon neutrality by ourselves. So that's to give an example of carbon neutrality ambition is something which is on the agenda of many companies, and that Signify has already reached that, and part of that ambition was reached through optimizing the energy efficiency of our real estate. So it is a separate contract indeed. It is, of course, still a very relevant question, is in how do we engage or include the actual energy bill in our contracts, but that is of course something we cannot do because that is not something that we can control. But what is, I think, interesting, at least from an innovation point of view, is that we do not only see the shift, of course, towards an LED system, but also that we make those systems smarter and smarter, that we include more and more sensors to gather data and to interpret that data. And we do see a benefit of that, because if we are able, which we are able, to share occupancy information about a certain building, that type of data is very interesting for energy providers, because then an energy provider can use that data to make a smarter prediction of consumption, and a smarter prediction of consumption helps that energy provider to provide more green energy than if they don't really have that information of consumption in a prediction. So that's something which is, I would say, already happening in the market, but still early phases. And I think where IoT innovation will only make it more interesting and more interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Tom. So I see another question. Are there some EaaS contracts which include guaranteed outcome? For example, not only efficient, up-to-date and maintained equipment, but also guaranteed energy savings. I think, Laurent, you're maybe referring to energy performance contract. So indeed, you do have what we call energy performance contract, in which there are which are based on savings, and which the payment is actually based on the energy savings. This is here what we focused in the project is on different types of contract, more based on either the usage of or the outcome. Now I don't know, maybe if either Tom, Stefan, or Ilmir, you have some guaranteed savings that you include within your contract, or are KPIs more based on I don't know, for instance, on the quality of light or the quality of the output?
Yeah, if I may, on lighting is of course everything depends on how much you burn the light, and that depends on how how many people are there and how many hours a day. So that is something that we cannot control. But what is part of our KPIs and on that is that we do guarantee what we promise on the box, and that's the difference between a technical specification, because the specification of a luminaire will tell you on how many watts it will consume, and you can make a prediction of energy consumption, but then there is the reality of that installation actually delivering on that because of the quality of the system and how it continues to perform over time. So in that way, we do include in our contracts that the energy performance needs to be the same for 10 years and not just after installation of the project.
Okay,
so we measure the performance of the system throughout the lifetime of the system.
So when you talk about performance, you're talking about the energy efficiency part, and not necessarily the light
Because
or lumen.
Yeah, but because for lighting, the consumption of light depends on the usage of the customer, and that is something which is variable and may vary over time. I mean, if you have let's say a building of 10 floors where you have 500 people working, if in 5 years' time you have only 100 people working, or the opposite, you have much more people working, and you change from 2 shifts to 3 shifts, that will have a huge impact on how much the light will be burning. And that is, of course, something the usage is highly depending on the customer. So we don't have as one of the poll questions, it's not a pay-per-use. It's and therefore that is not something that we can guarantee, because it's highly variable on the usage.
Yeah, same also for oh, sorry.
No, continue, Stefan, sorry.
No, similar to Tom's comment, the same for HVAC, even maybe more, that it's very variable depending on the weather, the amount of people, and maybe in those contracts like ESCO contracts, a lot of variables are there to protect one or the other. But then it can be so many, let's say, clauses to protect that in the end, you always can find a reason why it's not according to contract. So we also stay a bit away from that, and we are looking into indeed air as a service output, and in some cases now also maybe based on kilowatt hours, but not on guarantees of savings. This is not our vision.
In case of compressed air, as I mentioned today, we have outcome, one of the outcome-based guarantees. It's availability of machines, and that we calculate and measure, and of course we apply some returns if we don't achieve agreed or guaranteed level. In case of efficiency, that's for us nowadays a challenge which we try to overcome, because again, it's not only about our willingness, but also about technology, which in case of measurement of compressed air cost is quite costly, let's to be honest, and we don't want to make our customers paying for this. But that's something which we are, let's say, developing, under development right now in our case.
Yeah, thank you, Ilmir. Yes, indeed, it's a different kind of contract. When you look for energy savings, then you also have to measure a baseline, and you have to have also predictable processes in order to compare to that baseline. So actually, this type of contract, the efficiency as a service or pay-per-use or pay-per-outcome contract are also here in order to provide this solution of as a service in the context where it's not possible to really predict in advance some energy savings. There is a final question from Sebastian Coudray, but perhaps maybe you can explain if you'd like your question verbally. I will unmute you. I see EaaS is mainly focused on end user. How do you see it for OEM? Sebastian, if you don't mind, I can unmute you so that you can perhaps explain your question, and or else we can discuss on this after the webinar.
Yeah, so thank you first of all for the explanations. I was just willing to discuss or to ask what is your opinion, because indeed it's mainly focused on end user, looking to the lighting as well to HVAC as well to Atlas Copco to compressor business. But do you also have some insights how to approach it towards OEMs?
Can you give an example?
Yeah, Atlas Copco is one OEM where you have as well several sub-parts where the efficiency is playing a big role. So they have a lot of suppliers that are supporting or delivering goods to them, or supporting that initiative as well. So how do they look to suppliers, and maybe I can turn it around, how could they support in this initiative?
So your question is to see whether or not the as a service business model could also be applied for, like, not for final product, but for parts of product that goes within a final product.
Yeah, just to have, because it's always focused on the end user. So the lighting is in the factory, so that the end user paying the bill. You have HVAC as well, where you have the owner of the building, or someone who is renting it and who is paying the energy bill directly. The same with Atlas Copco, where you have the air, so it's a consumer in the end. If you go one step back, that you see maybe there's some opportunities for someone else. That's my question. Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
sorry.
The question is clear, I think, Mira. If I can answer for these questions, with our OEM customers, we are interacting, and we, for instance, it's as an example, industrial gases company, where compressors are the part of the whole system, let's say, of making industrial gases. So there we also provide the same solution for our OEM customers. But of course, it depends on what we want to at the end deliver to our end customers, because finally they have to benefit from the total solution, not just we or our OEM customer, but end user. And then of course we try to negotiate and discuss it with our OEM partners how to do it. But in our case, it's possible. We do it.
Thank you, Ilmir. I hope, Sebastian, that this answered your questions. But indeed, also, as Tom mentioned, when we talk about as a service, it's also about partnership, and this can be done also for the end supplier, but also throughout, I think, the supply chain, and efficiency as a service is also about partnership, and I think this can be done with the end user, but also for providing a solution to an end user. So definitely there is some space as well for OEM. So as we're reaching almost the end of the webinar, I will now, if you have any questions, we can address them later on. So just a few key takeaways from my side from the webinar. So when we look at as a service solution, so indeed some of you mentioned that the financial part would be your key driver to go for as a service solution. But I think it's very important to note that efficiency as a service is much more actually than a financial solution to access energy efficient equipment. It's about creating value for the customer and also co-creating value for the customer. As Stefan mentioned, there is no point in providing an oversized or undersized equipment to the customer. So the idea is to really design the equipment and the installation that really best fits the need for the customer. It's also about improved efficiency and performance. So when we talk about efficiency, as Tom mentioned, it's not only about the equipment or the technical specificities of the equipment, but it's also about how the equipment is maintained, how it is operated. So there's a lot of also digital technology that enables to maximize this performance. It is about partnership and trust between the supplier and the customer, because you enter in longer term, I would say in long-term contracts, or not always long-term, but sometimes long-term contracts. So it's really important to build this relationship of trust, but it's also partnership with, as Tom mentioned, with other installers or provider of services. And so this is also something that is important in efficiency as a service. So it kind of really changes the dynamic. It is about sustainability. It is about improved efficiency, resource efficiency, but also energy efficiency. And also about helping the customer focus on its core business. So the idea here is to enable also the customer to be able to focus on its core business. So before closing the webinar, I realize I'm already a minute late. Just a quick on the next step with regards to the efficiency as a service project. So as we mentioned, there are a lot of efficiency as a service contract that are emerging. So cooling, heating, etc. And convinced that this is a really sustainable business model where we move away from overconsumption. Our aim is to help scale up efficiency as a service, and this is what we would like to do within the project, is to really scale up these business models. So what we are doing within the project is mapping all the stakeholders that are interested and they want to interact within this business model. So either the provider of services, but also enablers. It can be financial institution, insurance companies, installers, service companies, integrators, facilitators. So all the stakeholders that are here as also enabler of efficiency as a service solution, but also of course the customers that seek to benefit, would like to benefit from all the advantages that efficiency as a service offer. So we are doing a mapping of all these stakeholders. So please do reach out. You will receive an email after the webinar with a link in order for you to highlight your interest in taking part in efficiency as a service agreements as a provider, as a customer, or as an enabler or facilitator. And also we will be organizing next year some webinars and workshop also on efficiency as a service, but also this time going more in depth within some topics. So within EaaS contracting, also on how to finance efficiency as a service, but also on efficiency as a service risk management, because there is, as Tom mentioned, change management that is needed. There is still a risk perception that remains a bit high with regard to this business model, and in some cases there is also a lot of shift in risk from the supplier, from the customer to the supplier, and so the idea is to also work with you through these elements. So thank you very much for joining this webinar. I do hope that you find it interesting and that at least you're convinced to go for efficiency as a service, or at least to start talking about it around you. So please do keep in touch, and we will also remain in touch with you. Thank you very much, and thank you also Ilmir. Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Stefan, for your presentations. We will distribute the slides and the link to the webinar after the webinar.
You're welcome. Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.